So as an Arab in today's debate, I think it's rather ironic that I am debating on what is best for Israel. But here I am. I think this debate is likely about what kind of world is optimum for this particular Israelis that just came out of the Holocaust in that particular circumstance. Because we realize or recognize their ability to practice their religious beliefs, the ability for them to get spiritual fulfillment, and at that point of time, the question then becomes, where is it that they should have the stance or have a home that accepts them, and why do you think that Middle East is more preferable than anywhere else? So before I move on to my argumentation, right, I think a few rebuttals and a few clarifications that I need to bring forward to today's debate. Because I think the two arguments that we got from Prime Minister is that number one, this particular the ability for them to be in Middle East was the catalyst or created the kind of crisis between Israel and Palestine, and how it was principally inconsistent for Palestine and the particular circumstance to take this responsibility. We think that Germany has already taken responsibility over the Holocaust that's already happened for Israel to Israelis in the end of the day. We think that this has translated into legislation that happened in Germany. Things such as your anti-hate speech that has happened, or to them even acknowledging the fact that Holocaust happened and have said sorry for it and have paid reparations to your particular Jews in order for them to create a better conditions of living for them to prosper in that aspect. So then I think the question becomes, right, I think it's rather unclear who are the stakeholders that side government wants to protect us about now. Is it Israelis in the first instance, or is it Palestinians that are suffering through the war that is happening in this particular circumstance? We think that the debate is about what is good for Israeli at a point in which they know the kind of sufferings that they are going through, that they went through, and how is it that they're able to prosper from that point onwards. So let's look at why is it that we think that it's going to be incredibly worse if they were to be in modern day Germany right now. So let's give a little bit of context as to what is particularly happening in Germany right now. We think that it is a rampant rise of right-wing populism. It means that the sentiment of the xenophobic sentiment is rather adamant in this particular circumstance, and we think that it's also has been translated to the electoral process of their parliamentary in first place. We think that Germany, as of now, the recent election, which is unprecedented, right? So how this anti-refugee kind of party has particularly won, an anti-EU party that gained more than 10% seat in Germany when allowing this party was represented in the first place. It shows that the shared sentiment of anti-xenophobic or xenophobic sentiment being brought across from people of Germany in that particular circumstance. So what is the outcome in which, if you have Israeli to be in this circumstance right now? We think that number one, it is unlikely for them to get the rights that they deserve in order for them to practice their spiritual beliefs that they kept close in of themselves, right? It is that they're unable to become the community in which they're able to practice their beliefs in that circumstance. We think that this is a kind of a clash in which they say that Germany is a secular state, which is why it's better. We don't think that that's likely true, because number one, the ability for them to be in Middle East meant that they're able to share the same sentiment of wanting to gain spiritual fulfillment over anywhere else, which is why we think in the first instance where Palestine was able to share the Holy Land that they had with Jerusalem already shows to us that there was already a common ground as to why is it that the Middle East accepted Israeli in the first place, which is the ability for them to share that particular Holy Land, which is the ability for them to be able to have the sort of same spiritual fulfillment, which unfortunately now, because probably we don't think that it's our burden to defend that circumstance. But let's look at and why is it that they likely that this circumstance means they will prioritize that particular values over anywhere else, and will be able to give sort of fulfillment or spiritual fulfillment to your particular Israelis in every day. We think that it's good that Israeli chose Middle East because it gives them the ability for them to start fresh, which is my second argument as to why is it that we think that it's good for them to be in the Middle East, and why is it that governance is better for a particular Israeli in the end of the day. We think that the ability for them to start fresh in a new place means that they're able to get or be able to call back, like the call of return, to the other Israelis that have been dispersed all around the global area. It means that they're able to get a particular area for them to prosper as like the new community. We think that this is the point in which you allow self-determination to happen for these particular individuals. It means that they are not tied to a government that is likely to be oppressing them. They are not tied to a government that is xenophobic or doesn't want to give them the sort of rights that they deserve. It means that they are able to create better laws that will give them the sort of ability for them to practice their culture even more. This also means that in an economical aspect as well, they're able to gain some economical capital from the businesses that they create. So for example, like for now, Israeli is doing direct business with your US and able to get this sort of capital and benefit from US in the end of the day. We think that that's rather good and to rely on a government that will not let you, will not more likely funnel you the sort of capital that you need in order for you to recuperate from a Holocaust or from a dispersed kind of community in the end of the day. Before I move on,
so like the UN in 1947 in your world actively chose to displace millions of Palestinians in order for the Israelites to have their home. Why is that fair, given that they are so foreign from the land and you're placing them in an area where they have a lot of more enemies?
So you have to look at the conditions in which Israelis was at that point in time. They did not have a home. They did not have a place for them to recuperate from a mass Holocaust or to recuperate from literally having to watch their family members die and under the hands of Germany at a particular point. We think that it was reasonable for UN to assume that maybe they needed a better or a land for them to live out of that particular traumatic experience and for them to be able to get self-determination, and we think that that was a legitimate reason for them to do so. You have to weigh out what is best for these particular individuals given the circumstances that they had to go through at that point in time. So let's look at why is it that we think this particular ability for them to have self-governance is good and not be able to live under the governance of a state that neglected them in the end of the day. We think that number one, the businesses that will happen within your particular Israeli state is better in order for them to get a sort of economic elevation for them to prosper in the end of the day. It means that they're able to make personal trade deals in order for them to retain economic boost as well. It's the ability for them to get the sort of economic boost for them to give social mobility to the particular Israeli people, to be able to live out of poverty from a point in which they didn't have anything for them to move on from, which is why we think that at that point they needed this sort of land for them and the sort of fulfillment that they will get from the religion that they practice, and we think that Middle East was the best place.
I thank the Leader of Opposition to carry on the case on the bench, joined by the Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
This debate is about comparison between the world that the state of Israel currently is in with an imagined world that would happen if they had been settled in Germany instead. Before we move on to explain why we think we're definitely winning, let's just take a look at what the conflict actually looks like. The creation of Israel in Palestine created a conflict that's caused millions of lives and untold amount of bloodshed with absolutely no solution in sight. It is difficult to imagine a world in which the state of Israel could have been formed in anywhere that was worse in the outcome that they have presented. So I don't really know where opposition is coming from. I'm going to deal with this debate on three levels. Firstly, what is the principled stance that should have caused Germany to give up land instead of the Palestinians? Secondly, why do we think the conflict is intractable? And thirdly, some arguments for why the standard of living would have been better. First, and I think it's the most important point of debate, it is about justice, because ultimately, the formation of the State of Israel required sacrifice from a country that existed in order to present the land for the Israelis to have a home. In the pursuit of this end, the way that the State of Israel was created was that the British literally just carved out random lands based on random historical ties to things like Jerusalem or that piece of land and displaced individuals unconsensually, creating the biggest refugee crisis of millions of Palestinians in history. Why did it comparatively? This would have been much better if it was Germany. Because Germany was complicit in the reason why the State of Israel was created in the first place. The German people consented to Hitler becoming the person that caused the Holocaust and caused the international sympathy that required the Jews to have a place to escape persecution from. Therefore, the only country in the world to whom the State of Israel has any sort of moral claim to their land and to force people out of the land that they were brought up in is in Germany. How exactly could Germany have been created in the negotiations that would have happened? I think they would have just picked a piece of land. Most pieces of land in Germany is pretty good because it's pretty central in Europe. But what is the comparative in terms of the creation of that particular state? The creation of the state in the Middle East was terrible because the British and the Western powers at the time were suffering from war fatigue, and they also suffered from geographical distance from the Middle East as a whole. This meant that the settlement of Israel was created with absolutely no intention or no thoughts for the future. If you think about it, no, the way in which they displaced the Palestinians meant that the Palestinians were in a non-contiguous state, which no sane country would have allowed to have happen, because it's literally the grounds for an intractable conflict. Why would it have been better if it was Germany? Firstly, because the British, who were the main proponents of the resettlement, are literally much more geographically proximate to Germany, which means that they would have had a greater interest in order to do this. But secondly, the international sympathy and sentiment of the time would have meant that instead of just leaving the problem to be in the Middle East and giving some sort of tokenistic land to these Israelis, they would actually have had some sort of incentive, because Germany was the primary cause of the problem. The conflict and the resistance from the Middle Eastern countries meant that it was easy for these individuals to just throw away the problem of Israel to them. That is why, if it just comes to the nature of the formation of that particular state, which is to say, not in the middle of two pieces of Palestinian settlements, for instance, and also in Germany, they would already have done a much better job, and we would not have had a conflict they were talking about now. Also, they would have gotten more help for the resettlement. Second question, conflict. Shah tells us, Germany is terrible, there's anti-refugee sentiment. Okay, compare that to what is happening in Israel-Palestine right now. I don't necessarily think that the comparative is worse, but also a lot of the reasons to why anti-refugee sentiment exists is literally because there are a ton of refugees that have come out of the Middle East as a result of the Israel-Palestine conflict, which has created the anti-refugee sentiment. At a point at which she admits herself that Germany has already acknowledged the crimes of the Holocaust, which they did after World War II when the State of Israel was created, then we think that the same anti-refugee sentiment would not have applied to the Israelis if they had gone in there at that point of time. But I think it's insufficient to just say Germany has taken responsibility, because they have not actually given up anything for the State of Israel, but rather have just sort of tried to assuage their guilt. It is the most bullshit attempt to assuage guilt in the history of mankind. Third, why is it that the conflict is significantly worse? Roger gave you analysis as to why the conflict is intractable as a result of the religious nature of the Middle East. So the Middle East is literally primarily Islamic, and while there are differences within the Islamic sect, it is nothing in comparison to the difference between Islam and Judaism. And as a result of this, there have been a few outcomes. Firstly, any attempt to solve the problem of the Israel-Palestine conflict has consistently been derailed by the most radical elements of the Islamic terrorist groups, like Hamas, for instance, who literally assassinated a leader that wanted to sign some sort of ceasefire with Israel, because they believe that anything that they do that gives Israel any sort of land or any sort of benefit is something that will send them to hell. It's something that's against their religion. And these are irreconcilable differences that no amount of negotiation will ever be able to solve. The second reason why is because it's seen as a Western imposition. The fact they came in and drew a square and put the State of Israel in there created huge amounts of resentment from the surrounding neighboring states, as well as the Ummah of the Muslim fraternity as a whole. And the reason why is because millions of Palestinians escaped to neighboring states like Jordan and Lebanon, and created huge amounts of economic burden from them. The expression of the economic burden became religious in nature, which is the reason why the IP conflict has not been solved to this day. The third reason why was proxy warfare, to the extent to which the State of Israel, because it is not a Muslim state, and because the strong Jewish lobby in the US has been consistently funded and given so much money for military advancement, and the Muslim states around it see it as a part of the US, is also one of the reasons the escalation of conflict that exists right now that sees absolutely no end. There is no solution to the current state that the Palestinians find themselves in. Their side needs to prove why it could have been solved, as opposed to if it had been created in Germany, where these problems would have been much less likely to apply, precisely because Roger already put it. That firstly, Germany is a largely secular state, and the areas or the countries that surround Germany are also largely secular. Next, standard of living. First thing that she said was the ability to practice their religion was important because of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the reason why there is no way for them to create the two-nation treaty, because both of them are fighting for the ownership of Israel. In a comparative world, what would have been likely to happen would have been that Israel would have been given a right to enter Germany for like religious pilgrimages, and that would have been sufficient for them because they would not have been in a position in which Jerusalem could have been theirs, and there would be no anti-Jewish sentiment that would have blocked them from entering that area. The second thing that she told us, however, was about the right to return, because in the absence of this, they would not have had the ability to create economic progression because of the fact that they didn't have a state. But the motion literally says the state of Israel, which I'm going to assume to mean that the borders are still theirs, the resources and the land is still theirs. They would have had the exact same right to have been able to become the prosperous nation that they are, minus the rocket-propelled grenades they are thrown across their borders every day and the huge amounts of money they spend on military defense. For these reasons, we think that the creation of occupied Palestine was wrong, and we think it should have been done in Germany instead.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister to end the opening exchange and invite the Deputy Leader of the Opposition. You're here.
I think it's extremely difficult for you to imagine a world where the whole government can't realize that Israelis are also human and that they deserve to live and have spiritual fulfillment on their side as well, as opposed to wanting to tell us all the harms that Israelis have done, but without being comparative as to why is it that Israelis also deserve the same thing that they could have right now. So there are a couple of things I want to talk about, right? The first one would be what would happen in a world where what would happen in Palestine and Middle East instead without when Israelis are in the Middle East. So the first thing, I think all the harms in the Middle East would happen regardless of Israel's presence as well. Regardless of Israel's presence anyway. They will still be going to war anyway. Why? Because you still have power whenever you want your resources, you guys will still going to invade for war anyway. Syrian war would happen because Assad wants power anyway. And ISIS would like it to happen because you guys also invade because they also see this is like a Western imposition on Middle East also anyway. Or the birth of ISIS in Iraq, for example, would still happen anyway, and that would mean that you will make things a lot worse for Palestine as well, because now Palestine will become more radical and wanting to make sure that they can have the form of purity in Islam as well. Which means that all the ideas about how the wars in the East are not mutually exclusive, because regardless of where Israel is, they will still happen on their side as well. And all of this didn't need to happen, didn't need Israel's presence to happen as at the end of the day. No, thank you. So that means that we will still have like countries like Saudi Arabia also, who also is in the Middle East, who also ship slaves from Lebanon, for example, across seas, because they also want to make, and that also has caused all your wars, all your conflict to also happen in the Middle East as well. That further proves that all the concerns about what happens in the Middle East are not mutually exclusive for them as well. So that material is still relevant at the end of the day. But let's look at Germany and what is the environment in Germany as well. We think that Germany is unnecessary and most suitable place to stay. There are several reasons to this, and there are several reasons to this. First is that they are not becoming increasingly secular, but they're becoming increasingly xenophobic and racist as well. So they don't understand the context from Germany that is happening right now. They're increasingly xenophobic. For example, your Angela Merkel also is losing votes on refugees as well, or your Viktor Orban in Hungary, for example, who won based on Christian and nationalist sentiments, has also influenced Germany to also be as xenophobic, if not more xenophobic, towards the minorities as well. So given that the composition of Germany right now is there are more Christians than any other minorities. If you put Israelis within Germany as well, they are still going to end up being minorities as well because the composition of Christians in there will still overpower and dominate the population as well. That means that Israelis will never be able to have a greater say in how they can determine how their life should be and whether or not they can still have the spiritual fulfillment that they get on their side. No thanks. That means that regardless of what happens in Germany, Israelis will always be in the losing end at the end of the day. We don't think that's fair for them to exclude Israelis from being able to still live the life that they should have been living. Then they rely on the idea of complicity. Or if you rely on Germany, if you think that Germany should do it, I think that's particularly disingenuous as well because the Holocaust didn't only start from Germany as well. Poland did it as well. Why couldn't that be put the responsibility on Poland as well? They were so complicit. Therefore, we don't think that the justification was one that is true as well. But even if that's the case, I think regardless of where you put Israelis in, whether or not Germany, for example, then you will still lose out anyway because it will still be the minorities as well. And here's where it's particularly harmful for Israelis as well, that they will never be able to self-determine and govern themselves the way that they could have had done right now. This was a benefit that they weren't able to respond to that. Number one, that Israelis will never be able to get the attention that they get right now. They will never be able to self-determine. You can't get it to establish Jerusalem as for them to have their holy land and to their spiritual fulfillment. You will never be able to have the Knesset, the parliament, to implement the right of return for you to be able to call back all Israelis who were displaced by the Holocaust at the end of the day, for them to finally have a home as well. What else? They will never be able to set up your Yisma fund, for example, for the state to be able to fund Israelis for companies so that they are able to also economically uplift themselves at the end of the day. All this can only happen at a greater scale for Israelis if they are able to set up their own country within the Middle East as well. If you put them in Germany, then it's unlikely that they can get the same benefits as much as they could have had right now. Yeah.
So the motion is not just about what's good for Israel, but the world as an entirety, if Israel had been put in Germany. But also, don't you think that the idea of the state means that they have the right to self-determine within those borders?
Okay, but it's also a scale of how much can they self-determine as well without the imposition from Germany as well. So that's why the idea about the fact that the wars in Middle East happen is not necessarily because of Israel exclusively. It's also because your US invasion, for example. It's also because of power gap within Saudi Arabia as well as all other Western powers as well. That means that independent of whether or not Israelis want to have a hope or not, all the wars will still happen because the Western also want to invade because of their oil, because they also think that Middle Eastern people are far inferior than they are as well. That means that at this point in time, Israelis will never be able to get the same amount of power that they could get right now. I understand and I can see that it's regrettable that people die, Palestinians are unable to deal themselves, they will always be considered as illegal settlers. But that will still happen anyway because Palestine is also bordering, for example, Syria as well as Iraq. So if radicalization happens in Iraq and Syria, that means that the fight for, for example, ISIS fighting for purity of Islam or whether or not Sunnis or Shias should be the true form of Islam, that thing could have been far worse for Palestinians anyway, because your terrorists will still come into Palestinians anyway. That means that you will further exacerbate the problem and the point where even Fatah and Hamas are unable to also unite to be able to have the true Palestine that you want under your side. That means that all the harm that we talk about are more likely to still happen under our side anyway. That means that the fact that Israelis are able to govern themselves right now, are able to say that we also deserve a home, could only be materialized at a point where they are able to have all the benefits and all the benefits that we talk about in the very first place. Independent of the creation of state of Israel in Middle East, all the wars are still going to happen. You will never be able to get the attention you get right now. They will, in fact, the comparative is that they will live far worse in Germany, where there's no only xenophobic sentiments are there, but they also will still be considered as second-class citizens as minorities within Germany as well. That's why it's far better for Israel to be in the Middle East. Thank you.
Thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that speech. To open the closing half of the debate, and by the Member of Government. Here.
Yes, yes. There's no mic. There's mic.
I think it's
You want the mic? Right? Opening opposition is out of this debate because the motion assumes that we need to reimagine how the Middle East would look like without Israel being there. When Israel is surrounded by Arab nations who are hostile to Israel because they are different, because they are Europeans who came, who actively displaced Palestinians who originally were there just standing the land, because somehow their spiritual fulfillment is far more important in comparison to the rights of Palestinians who were originally there. The way they wanted to cop out of this debate is to say that wars in the Middle East, all of the conflict that could possibly have happened already, can exist independently. And I will contest that by saying some of them are because of the existence of Israel. Firstly, the fundamental reason why the disunity of Muslims in the Middle East exists is because Iran was able to scapegoat Israel to be the reason why Muslims should be able to, why Iran should be the one that takes responsibility of the fate of Muslims in the Middle East. That's why Iran fundamentally decides to invest in proxy wars in Lebanon, in Qatar, in Syria, because they know the contrast would be a Saudi Arabia that actively supports the creation of Israel. The disunity fundamentally exists because of the creation of Israel. They needed to respond to that. But secondly, let's just recognize how Israel-Palestine looks right now, because they have to concede that the conflict is protracted because of the creation of refugees, because of the creation of terrorist groups like Hamas, fundamentally because they disagree with the presence of Israel there. They say that's okay because we are able to prioritize the spiritual fulfillment of Israel, the Jewish people was previously persecuted because of the Holocaust, without actually explaining why that's fairer in comparison to putting them into Germany. Opening government did sufficiently to explain why Germany was better. They talked about how Germany should be the one that must give up their land because they were morally culpable to all the harms that the Jewish people go through. Closing government will extend this further to explain fundamentally why the location of Israel in Europe is best for the progression of the Jewish people, recognizing that most of them are already European to begin with. So let's go on to the extension right now. Why is that true? Firstly, they are ethnically proximate. Recognize that these are probably your Polish Jews, your English Jews, your French Jews, who already have existing structures like their friends and family, existing businesses, and being able to assimilate towards local cultures better in comparison to moving towards a new land that forces them to integrate between a culture that is vastly different from them. But second, recognize that the act of moving these people to the Middle East forces them to displace Palestinians who are already there. The fact that you are likely going to displace, they already displaced millions of refugees because the fact that they prioritized and the Zionist movement was able to convince the UN to give them that land because that's the land they closely relate to. We think that ultimately the ability for the Jewish people to progress as a society is far better in a world whereby they're surrounded with people who share the same ethnic links and also structures that allows them to do their businesses better. How is that likely going to occur? Firstly, existing infrastructures that exist in Europe in 1947 would have made it far easier for them to be able to boost their businesses. For example, they can probably sell their goods to a French millionaire a lot easier rather than waiting to an Arab millionaire who's not going to buy their goods because they are buying Israeli goods in Israel and the Middle East, would fundamentally mean you take away resources from the Arab Palestinians who are already there. Second, cultural proximity would likely mean that people are more comfortable buying goods with an Israeli who is placed in Germany. ultimately this means that their businesses and all the economical developments that they talk about in open opposition will happen far better in a world where they're able to access infrastructures like your railroads, more factories, rather than them spending their own capital to build a new one in a foreign land that they're not used to. That's why we think their economy would have been so much better. But the third thing is that there is just no constant threat of war, right? The fact that you are able to build your economy safely without allocating resources to self-defense would mean that that money being allocated towards the economy would have made the economy far stronger. So we think that in a world where it's placed in Germany would have made it better. So we think their benefits would have happened better in the world whereby they are placed in Germany. I'll take closing.
Are you seriously suggesting that the Jews feel culturally proximate to their Polish and German oppressors and therefore it's a good thing?
I mean, the fact that they are already used to, one, being there, second, existing local cultures like the food that they are able to feel closely related to in comparison to a foreign land just because of the religion, or the Zionist movement that convinced them that reparations must exist in Israel is far worse because of the conflict that is protracted. It's a comparative, right? You need to suggest why that conflict is worth it to the Israelis at the end of the day, or also with the Palestinians. But let's talk about how Israel is right now. Because you can't let them get away with suggesting that spiritual fulfillment is important in 1947 without explaining the impacts of prioritizing that cultural fulfillment. One, the restriction of the freedom movement of Israeli men because they are forced to be conscripted in the army for self-defense, because they are placed in the Middle East, because they have to be the army to defend themselves from threats from Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, in the Six-Day War, or the First Intifada, Second Intifada, would mean you restrict their freedom of movement, and that is directly caused because of their placement. Or the fact that soldiers have to go through psychological trauma of shooting a Palestinian because of the use of disproportionate force by the Israeli government, because they are there to keep it. The quality of life of the Israeli people is far worse in Palestine because the stress of waiting and being in the safe room, waiting for a Hamas rocket to come to you, and soldiers being deployed to kill innocent civilians because of Hamas. But secondly, also the idea that the establishment of right-wing politicians right now in Israel is because of their placement. Because the Jews feel a moral superiority because they know that they are the beacon of democracy as a result of your support, and also being proximate to allies forces them to wage an us against them mentality that ultimately harms other actors within the region. All of that can be avoided if they just move to Germany, and that's why fundamentally I'm so proud of this.
I thank the member of government for the speech. Next, I invite the member of opposition. Here.
Now, the key problem I have with government is that they have been very flippant in terms of their characterization of the trouble. They have been very flippant in their characterization of what a world in which Israel was located bordering Germany would look like. Therefore, I'm going to do three things in my speech, rebuttals with interwoven with extensions. Firstly, what are the trade-offs we're willing to accept when we deal with competing worlds in this debate? Second, why is it that Assad House is best for Jewish people? And lastly, why is it that the sovereign state of Israel can only be meaningfully constructed if it's not bordering Germany? First argument, what are the trade-offs we're willing to accept? Don't let government get away with this idea that all the harms that we see between Israel and Palestine right now is because of Israel being located within the Middle East. The only harm we're willing to consider that we take on is the harm of displacement for innocent Palestinians, but not all other forms of tension as a result from that. What am I saying here? I'm saying here that a lot of the harms that especially OG tells you is not exclusive to where Israel was constructed, but how Israel was constructed. It is not because Israel was in the Middle East, but it was a manifestation of how Israel was constructed. What does this mean? This means to say that if we had done things like provide economic compensation to neighboring countries like Jordan, for instance, we might have been able to prevent things like proxy wars from occurring. If we had done things like start immediate negotiations for the two-state solution, which they did not immediately do, we think we might perhaps have prevented the conflicts that we see today. Therefore, a lot of the problems and harms that Sherman talks to you about in her OG speech is not exclusive to where Israel is constructed, but how Israel is constructed in the aftermath of Israel being located within the Middle East. Therefore, I don't think that argument is exclusive to an argument that government should be running. But no, thank you. But lastly, the thing is that we're going to suggest to you that things that agreements are perfectly feasible. Don't let them tell you that things like irreconcilable differences. Because even on their side of the house, the construction of a viable Israel state that's bordering Germany would also need all these types of agreements for it to be peaceful and stable. Therefore, if they can agree that these agreements can occur, I'm also going to suggest to you that these agreements can also exist on our side of the house. Therefore, don't let them get away with this whole idea of how there's irreconcilable differences. I'm going to suggest to you, thank you, that in many instances, the reason in which there's irreconcilable differences is often because of the way in which they handle the aftermath and not because of the act itself. Therefore, the only trade-off we're willing to accept is that there are innocent Palestinians that have been displaced. This is crucial because this will form the comparative with what I'm going to talk to you about in my next extension. That is the progression of the Jewish people. So I think government has always challenged us, right? Why is it we particularly need Israel? Why is it we particularly need Israel? I'm going to answer you in two reasons. The first, why we particularly need Jerusalem. I'm going to suggest to you that Jerusalem is crucially important. And that is the key importance of locating Israel in this particular area. Why is that the case? Recognize that Jerusalem is literally the birthplace of Judaism. It's religiously important for Jews. It's perceived by them as the pinnacle of their identity and the pinnacle of their religion. Why is this crucial? Thank you. Panel, for many Jews during the genocide and during the wars who have lost their brothers and fathers, many of them have lost all form of will to live. Religion, and specifically Jerusalem, was crucial for them to recover from the trauma of genocide. We're going to give you the example of the Kamaru, where the Kamaru, in order to destroy the resistance of the Cambodians, actively burned down temples and religious scriptures to break the will of people. This shows you how important religion is. Therefore, conversely, if we're able to use the positive impact of religion, we thought that we had to do so, we owed a moral obligation to do so. So thank you. So this is not just about giving them one piece of land in Europe, we are giving them one piece of land in the Middle East. This is about giving them a particular structure of Jerusalem that was crucial to the existence of their community. The only argument I heard from Sherman was, well, we can give them access for pilgrimage. Two problems with that. Firstly, is the issue of geography, right? Where it's extremely far for you to go from Germany all the way to the Middle East, and therefore, because of that, there's limited access and therefore limited reach. But second, if what the government tells you about is true, that there's irreconcilable differences, and that the area is dominated by Arabs, I'm going to suggest to you that it's very, very scary for a Jew to make that alone pilgrimage to this far-off area by themselves. What then did we hear from CG? Thank you. CG tells us, but it's good for you to be in Europe, thank you, because you share ethnic links. Speaker, when I POI them, what types of ethnic links they talk about? They talk about food. I'm going to suggest to you that living in land proximate to where all these atrocities occurred, living in land where you literally saw your brothers and your fathers get killed, I'm going to suggest to you that they want to be as far away as possible. If the only thing you can give us as an example is that of food, I'm going to suggest to you that's very pathetic. Then they tell us, but you know, you have things like sharing the same ethnic links, right? You need people who have the same ethnic links. Two responses. Firstly, presumably, if you want people to share the same ethnic links, what we will do and what we did do is to shift all Jews of all similar ethnic links to Israel, right? But second, if the ethnic link is some sort of arbitrary ethnic link to Polish or Germans, I suggest to you that the genocide they already feel means they cannot feel culturally proximate to their oppressors. Then they tell us in OG that, no thank you, it's unfair, right? Because we must make Germany pay, right? Because Germany is the one that did this atrocity and therefore we must make Germany pay. What we're going to suggest to you is not just Germany, right? It's the whole international community. That is to say, that the whole of the international community owes the Jews. It's not just the Germans, right? Why is that the case? Because I'm going to suggest to you that the international community was complicit in the genocide as well. International inaction, was literally culpable for the exacerbation of conflict and genocide within Germany. Before I move on, yes.
So in terms of moral obligations, the scale, complicit by not doing anything and actually having killed them. But also, if your claim is that Jerusalem is important to Israelis, as a Christian, the Temple Mount is also the centerpiece of my religion. You then allow me to create a state around Jerusalem.
But the difference is that the Christians did not suffer the same genocide as the Jews, right? We're going to suggest to you, because of the specific types of instances and genocide that the Jews suffered from, the only way to let them recover was to give them a piece of religion that was as sacrosanct as Jerusalem. Third argument then, why is it a sovereign state of Israel cannot be meaningfully constructed if it bordered Germany? This is where I do a lot of serious argumentation. I'm going to suggest to you that the way in which their side, or the manifestation of how their war will look like, will be the immediate aftermath of the war. Why is this problematic? The viability of the state relies on three things: the military, economics, and political. What we're going to suggest to you is that if you have a state bordering, like literally bordering Germany, anything you do as an independent state is going to be perceived as a threat to Germany. This is bad because of three reasons. Politically, I'm going to suggest to you this is going to fuel the forms of far-right rhetoric that they are so scared of in CG. Second, militarily, I'm going to suggest to you have a lot more militarization via the outside of the house. This means the constant threat of war that CG also talked about is far worse on their side of the house. Conscription is also far worse on their side of the house. But lastly, in terms of economics, right, you can't talk about economic ties at the point in which fractious relations between Germans and Polish via the types of Jews means that you will never want to work together. Therefore, in a fragile landscape, I'm going to suggest to you the sovereign state of Israel can't be meaningfully constructed. What then will they say? They might say, oh, well, we have the British and the Americans to protect you. This is problematic, because if the British and the Americans do intervene, I'm going to suggest to you that a proxy war between Britain and Germany now, the proxy war between these two superpowers is going to be a lot worse than in terms of proxy wars between like Jordan and Iran or Jordan and Israel, for instance. Therefore, in terms of the scale of damage, is a lot worse on that side of the house as well. For all these reasons, I'm incredibly proud to stand on the side of closing government.
Thank you, member of opposition. To end the debate on government bench, I invite the government whip. Here you go.
Peace.
Okay.
Would you like to put some tape, right?
So where are we right now in this debate? I think we have an opening opposition that focuses primarily on Germany right now and why their right-wing politics means that it's less likely for Israelis to be able to form their identities properly and be able to get spiritual fulfillment. I'm not sure why spiritual fulfillment is much more better in comparison to you living in fear of war and you literally afraid of Hamas attacking you. I'm not sure why that's important. But secondly, we have a closing government that tells us that Germany and other European states will have their own proxy war. I'm not sure why that happens, because given that Germany lost the war to the Allies and was super really weak, means that it's less likely for them to go against their Israeli allies. But secondly, the fact that Germany and Europe and the rest of Europe are like economically aligned, they're politically aligned, they're in NATO, they're in EU, means that it's less likely for them to go to war against each other, because they want political stability, they want economical stability. I'm unsure why the harms in closing opposition will exist. So let's firstly take up closing opposition. Because they started out their member speech by saying that it's not where Israel was placed, but how they were placed. If we had given economic compensation to Jordan and Egypt, I'm sure that all of the conflicts wouldn't have happened. Firstly, bro, the Middle East is primarily Muslims. They have cultural and religious similarity that made most Middle Eastern countries usually hate Israelis for taking out their own brothers and sisters and displacing and killing those individuals. I'm unsure why Middle Eastern individuals would be okay if you had given them money. Those religious and cultural similarities was far more important to them in comparison to that money. But secondly, the fact that a lot of religious Islamist groups that are radical, like literally hate Israel for taking out their brothers and sisters. I'm still certain that those religious, there's Islamist radical groups will still exist under your side of the house. I'm not sure why you can change anything if you change how they will face it, right? Secondly, I think this opposition started, that opening opposition started listing down several conflicts in the Middle East, like things like Assad will still oppress his own people, ISIS will still exist, US will still invade Afghanistan. So it's really funny, right? Because in hindsight, for all of those reasons, it seems to me that the Middle East is a horrible place for you to put individuals who have been massively displaced because of the Holocaust, who lost millions of brothers and sisters due to the war. It's such a place that you could see it's full of war, it's full of where so many people died, it's full of radical Islamist groups that also hate Jews. So I'm unsure if they want to protect Israelis and they want to protect Jews. I'm unsure why you must place that in the Middle East. But secondly, we argue to you that Fred told you the fundamental reasons why these conflicts exacerbate and escalated was because of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The fact that Fred told you the reason why Iran participated in the proxy war, funding groups in different Middle Eastern countries, because they wanted to disempower Saudi Arabia, because Saudi supported the formation of Israel. But secondly, the fact that the creation of Hamas, when Hamas significantly radicalized because they wanted to protect the Palestinians, we think that those crises escalated further because you put Israel in Palestine. We think those conflicts become much worse because of your existence there. But secondly, let's deal with this ridiculous idea about formation of Israeli identity and their pursuit to spiritual fulfillment. My response to this is I'm unsure how valuable your formation of identity or how valuable your spiritual fulfillment is, given that Israelis are living in fear when they fear when is the next Hamas attack. They are in constant threat of war. They are in a world where they're surrounded by enemies. The fact that Fred told you they're surrounded by Egypt and Jordan when previously they went to war during the 6-day war and during the Yom Kippur war, we think it's less likely for them to feel safe and being able to get spiritual fulfillment and self-actualization when they are too busy living in fear and too busy thinking about the war. But secondly, the fact that Fred told you soldiers and individuals are psychologically harmed. Like for example, soldiers are forced to kill and shoot children. Those PTSD, the amount of PTSD and mental psychological harm that you have to go through means that spiritual fulfillment would have been great. But lastly, the fact that you restrict the individual's movement and livelihood because these individuals are forced to be conscripted, they're forced to go to wars that they don't even want to go to. In conclusion, spiritual fulfillment won't even be fulfilling under your side of the house, and they can't even properly form their identity because they're so scared of war. But secondly, contrast that to a world where Fred built for you. The fact that we place Israel in Germany, where they're not surrounded by enemies, but rather countries that are more culturally different, culturally similar to them, but also countries who are their allies, like for example France and Britain, countries that are actively trying to form the countries for them. So it's really disingenuous for them to come up here and tell us and say that, oh, Fred only talked about food. But when he told you about the similarities between your language, the similarity between your cultures, means that it's more likely for you to form your identity better there because you're more comfortable there in comparison to a country where you're surrounded by individuals who do not like you, you're surrounded by radical groups that want to destroy you. I think really the formation identity becomes much better under our side of the house. But secondly, they told us, oh, but what about spiritual fulfillment? You have the geographical difference between Jerusalem and Germany means that it's really hard for you to go to Jerusalem. Bro, just take a flight to Jerusalem and just get your spiritual fulfillment there when things are getting better, right? I'm not sure why this is a problem. We think at the very end of the day, we think we give in that when Israel is in Germany, where they're surrounded by allies, it's more likely for them to get economically better as well. There was no response to this, to levels of analysis as to why it's more likely for you to be able to work together with Polish individuals who are already in France, who are able to economically build you up as well and help you build your country. It's more likely for you to get investment into Israel as well. That formation identity and formation of your country becomes significantly better. And the reason why Gigi takes this debate is because we told you that the formation of the Israeli state becomes much more economically empowered, but we also protect the lives and protect the lives of Israelis as well as Palestinians. Proud to.
Thank you, Government Whip. Now I'd like to invite the opposition whip to here. Huh?
Why do you make such a deep voice?
I'm using my voice.
I have two parts to my speech. The first, I'll be discussing the principle and why we primarily owe the obligation in the context of post-World War II to Israel, to the Israelis and the Jews first. And secondly, I'll talk about the problematic world that they imagine when Israel, the state of Israel is anywhere near the state of Germany. First, on the principle. I think we heard a few claims coming out from opening government that was, I guess, extended by CG, but it's pretty much the same. I think what they were pretty much insensitive to was the bulk of material that came out from Hanyang. I think firstly, he established that in post-World War II, many Jews lost the will to live, and the only form of comfort they could have found was Jerusalem. Why is it therefore important that we give this to them as an international community? First, that we understand that if we do not give the kind of comfort that they require, you are also complicit in the genocide that the Germans enacted upon them. We say that it's morally abhorrent that they support a world where Israel is not anywhere near the only place that could have given them the will to live. And to the extent that they themselves agree that the genocide was and the Holocaust was something that we wanted to morally condemn, then we say that direct compensation was also required. But secondly, to the extent that they also admitted that there's international sympathy for the individuals in Palestine, then they must also accept that as a world we must give them the most the primary thing that they have demanded for. And the reason is this: because the reason the genocide happened in the first place is because of years and years of international inaction in those areas to begin with. That was what facilitated Germans in the killings and the anti-Semitism that was built up in the area before World War II. And we think that that's fundamentally problematic. We say, therefore, as a world, we owe the primary obligation to acquiescence to the demands that Israel has created. Do we admit that Germany should be the spearhead and should be the one paying for this? Yes, we do. We do admit that Germany should be the one to do this. But we also say that the way in which that we envision our world to be is not the one that is currently manifests as itself right now. We admit that the current world is not a panacea and is not necessarily one of a utopia. But we think all we're trying to say is our world is far worse. To the extent that we are able to say that we want to be able to create a negotiation process where Israel is able to be near the land, but also say, for example, things like sharing the land with Palestinians, for example. We say we are able to minimize the kind of harms that they wanted to talk about. Yes, we agree that the displacement of Palestinians was something wrong, but we think that if we had engaged with them and we negotiated with them, as well as negotiated with past and German leading this pact, of course, then we say that we're able to create a world that is much more sustainable and much better to begin with. Opening up to you.
So the comparative cannot be made that way. We gave you structural reasons to why the negotiations that would happen if they resettled in Germany would have been much better than the shoddy negotiations that happened when they were in the Middle East. You can't just assume that in the Middle East it could have been better because it was not with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah, okay, the benefit of hindsight has also allowed us to re-look at how we did it in the past. And we say that yes, we reject obviously we reject the way of which we did it in the past. So we are not so sure why the negotiations in Germany that they claim they have is going to be any better. They've not provided any reasons why, but we say that it's probably easier to do it in the Middle East precisely because the tensions between the Arab states at that point in time with Israel were probably not that high. There was no organic hate against Israel, and there's no organic anti-Semitism as compared to Germany, who's likely to not want to give in anyway, right? But more importantly, to the extent that displacement will take place anyway, to the extent that we agree that if we don't displace Palestinians, we're probably displacing the Jews as well, because we're denying them a place that they originally belong in, given that Jerusalem was the birthplace of Jews to begin with. We say that displacement happened anyway. So the kind of things that we want to avoid is displacement at whole, and the only way that we do that is when we bring Israelis closer to the area that we talked about. Second point, therefore, why is it therefore the imaginary world that they envisioned to have will not manifest in the way that they wanted to have? I think the problem with the entire government was that they were pretty optimistic at how their world would pan out. And the problem is that it would not pan out in the way that they, I guess, and imagined it to be. The first thing I would like to say is that you create a much more fearful Germany in a climate where you're putting literally the people that they have oppressed right next to them. Literally, that these two states are going to be enemies bordering each other. Meaning, first of all, you make the process much more difficult to reach in the first place, right? So the idea of the negotiations of which land to give or what kind of place you want to give, Germany is probably unlikely to want to give the most fertile land or the most economically viable land to Israel. That's principally a problem, but also practically a problem, given that, like, at that point in time, the world's primary interest is to end World War II as soon as possible. You are much likely to delay in their version of events. But secondly, I think Germany will be primed for anti-Semitism on their side of the house, because any independent policy by Jerusalem, by Israel, for example, conscription, for example, wanting to build a military to defend themselves, will probably be seen as a direct threat to Germany because of how close it is. This is problematic to the extent that we admit that during that point in time, anti-Semitism was something that was still rife, and they had to give it up purely because they ran out of resources to fight the war. It also means that this can precisely play into the fears of Germans who will probably engage with, who can probably also engage with, for example, wars that they want to wage on their own at the borders as well. We're talking about border skirmishes, which means that the kinds of war that they wanted to avoid will continue to perpetually exist. But thirdly, to the extent that Israel will also be particularly hostile, because we understand that history shapes the kind of policies that you have in the world, to the extent that you're pretty afraid that Germany will enact the same harms upon you once again. I think that that's heavily problematic. What are they likely to do? They envision a world where they're probably going to do things like put their artillery right at the borders, right next to Germany, in order to defend themselves. What does this mean? It means the propensity of creating another war between Israel and Germany is extremely high on their side of the house. To the extent that we think that wars are terrible for the world, that is the biggest harm that happens on their side of the house that we sought to avoid. But more importantly, we understand that the harms that happen on their side of the house is that the EU as a region will never be the way that it currently exists anymore. It will be far more polarized between support of Germany and the support of Israel. But more importantly, the kind of economic benefits that CG wanted to talk about will never actualize, given that Israel and Germany could be literally competing for economic resources, but also they will, the failure to cooperate is a problem. Also, we think that, given that there's a propensity of war within the EU region, we think that the harm is far worse, given the biggest military powers, such as Germany, such as Britain, is nearest to those areas. We want to avoid that via votes.
Thank all. I thank all teams for the debate. Work on the floor and shake hands.
Penang? Where? I don't know. Let's go find something.